All right, hello everyone. It took me a moment to get started here. I'm running a little bit behind, but I'm here. So I'm going to make sure I can see myself on the YouTube side. An ad is running over there. Yep, there I am. And for the second straight stream, I'm simulcasting to my original channel and to my science channel because this one it involves both. It's a Black History piece. I'm sorry. Let me slow down. It's a Black History piece. It's an education piece, but it's also a science piece. If you're new coming in, please hit the like button. Yeah, let me make sure I can see this over my science channel as well. I see Helmet Chili. What's going on? Thank you for being here. AB Media, thank you for tuning in as well. Let me just make sure I can see myself. Yep. What's going on? Okay. So you're over on the when you simulcast, your chat is getting comments from two different channels. This happens when you simulcast to Facebook as well. So Kweku Isasi looks like you're over on the science channel, and Helmet Chili, you're over on the science channel as well. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna play the intro, and then I'm gonna get into the meat and potatoes of this. Probably go for about an hour, and then I'll jump off because this is a double header for me. This is the second part of a double header. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Since I'm simulcasting to the science channel as well, I'm going to play the science channel intro, just as I did for my Ben Carson discussion. So I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is a simulcast to my original Big Discussions 76 channel, and also it's a simulcast to Big Discussions 76 Science and Technology because I think it very much applies to both. So if you're watching on either side, please hit that like button and please get the engagement up. It's February 5th, 2022 of it's Black History Month, the shortest month of the year. So I'm on a little dash here to get some Black History Month content out. And I'm going to read something that I wrote, which I think is very, very important. But I'm going to start this. Hey, if you're new coming in, please hit the like button. If you're watching on either side, the super chat is live. I don't have a super chat over on the Science channel at this point. But if you want to make a donation to my Cash App or PayPal, those are here. I'll drop those in periodically, depending upon how long we go. So Helmet Chili made a comment here which underscores the importance of this stream. He says, whoops, that's the wrong one. He says, haven't heard much about Percy Julian recently. Great, you're highlighting him. Okay, so I'm going to start this imaging and messaging. Imaging and messaging. Imaging and messaging. I'm a believer in the importance of imaging and messaging because I think that especially when we're young, the things that we see and the things that we experience early on that helps shape our worldview, and it kind of points us in certain directions and gives us insight as to what we can be and what we can do and what we can become. So imaging and messaging. What do most of us see as, well, I'm Black, so my experience is going to come from that particular station. But as young Black kids, what do we see growing up? What kinds of things do we emulate? We emulate entertainment, we emulate sports, we emulate celebrity. But how many of you grew up with STEM professionals in your family? How many of you grew up with pharmacologists or toxicologists, or I think Nicole, her background is genetic engineering or molecular biology. How many of us grew up seeing people like that? I am the first PhD in my family, and I am the first STEM professional in my family. I have a cousin on my father's side who is a physician, which is a scientist. A health practitioner is a scientist. But we grow up. If you watched the Cosby Show, that Cliff Huxtable was an OBGYN. I can't think of what that acronym stands for right now. OBGYN. But he delivered babies. So we saw medical doctors, but what about the researchers? What about the innovators? What about the people, the professionals, the scientists, the thinkers, the innovators out there creating new knowledge? And what about those people who are out on the edges of science? Did you see those people growing up? And then, do we have a history of doing that type of thing? How many Black scientists are there throughout our history? And if there are some, have you heard of them? My experience, I think Charles Drew is the only one that I could think of. He created the blood bank, I believe. And then a lot of my other Black history I heard through late 80s, early 90s conscious hip hop. But when you think about Black History Month, and I'm going to end this rant pretty soon. When you think about Black History Month, what do we normally think of? We think of Dr. Martin Luther King. We think of John Lewis. We're going to get in some good trouble. I got my head beaten in on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I watch the Black Authority sometimes, so I had to do that just once. But we see Dr. King. We see Jesse Jackson. We see John Lewis, Elijah Cummings. We see, Maxine and Rosa Parks, and we see our civil rights leaders. What about our innovators and our inventors? What about our business people? Do we ever see those people? Um, I like to think I would say that we see those people very little, and hence this live stream. I didn't find out about Percy Julian. I'm going to go back to this comment here from Helmet Chili. He says, haven't heard much about Percy Julian recently. Great, you're highlighting him. I'm a STEM professional. I have a PhD in pharmacology and a background in an extra 2 to 3 years of training in toxicology. I did not hear about Percy Julian until after I finished my science training. And I think that's a problem. That means that growing up in Buffalo, during all of the church Black History Month programs, no one mentioned him. I wasn't at one point pointed in that direction, even though I had an affinity for the sciences early on. No mention of Percy Julian. I wouldn't have expected him to be mentioned at my high school. I did go to a technical high school, but how much would that a diverse high school? How much would a diverse high school cover Black history, unless there were Black science teachers who were privy to that? At my HBCU, here's a big one. At my HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, I do not recall any mention of Percy Julian the entire time I was a general biology major. I had to take GChem, wound up doing pretty well in it, did pretty well in organic chemistry. I was a general biology major, so maybe the chemistry majors, maybe he was discussed with the chemistry majors. But in terms of all of us in the natural sciences department, I think it would have been very, very valuable to hear about him and his story at that point in my journey. And as I'll describe, that would have been very, very valuable for me, because throughout my graduate studies at the University of Michigan, I wasn't sure that I belonged there. I wasn't sure that I had the skills to be there. I wasn't sure why I was there. And then there were cultural aspects in terms of being a Black man that I struggled with, because as a graduate student, you don't have a lot of money, and you know that as men, much of our worth, at least as it's defined by others, is it depends on how much money you have, and also you're expected to adhere to certain archetypes based upon the culture and mainstream media. So I went through a whole lot of struggles during my graduate school journey that if I'd known this story of Percy Julian, it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of headache. Art Newstyle, thank you for stopping through. Art Newstyle said, "Peace, fam." He said he's frat. Stan Shelton said, so I guess Percy is a member of Omega Sci-Fi. Okay. So I'm going to read this blog post. Most of you guys know that I'm a writer. And I wrote this about Percy Julian a couple years ago, and then I revisited it on my blogging platform. So let me enable my screen share. Yeah, our Black scientists and innovators, I think they deserve just as much airplay as our civil rights leaders. Maybe even more. So this is below in the description box. And I wrote this. This is called A Black History Month Reflection on Percy Julian. This was published on February 15th. Wow, 2017. And that's him right there. And I'll show you in a second where that picture comes from, or where I got that picture from. Please hit the like if you're new coming in. The super chat is live. If you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are here. I don't have a super chat on the science channel at this time, so you can't super chat me over there. Anyway, this reads as follows. This one is short. And Art Newstall, if you hang on for a little bit, I'll drop the links if you want to come up and say something since he is frat. I know you're in education yourself. Let's see. I originally published this piece on Percy Julian in February of 2015 when still writing for the Examiner. He is someone I would consider a hidden figure. Remember the movie? I think that was around the time Hidden Figures came out about the three women. No mention of Percy Julian. We could use a Percy Julian movie, in my opinion. He is someone, okay, attaining a PhD in the sciences myself, I didn't learn about Julian until well into my science career in regulatory science. When I watched the documentary Forgotten Genius, I was amazed not only about what Julian had to overcome, but also everything he accomplished scientifically and how the very same scientific process I experienced as a graduate student was similar to his. Dr. Vernon Morris of Howard University's Department of Chemistry and the NOAA Center for Atmospheric Sciences later shared with me that watching Forgotten Genius was in fact required for Howard's chemistry students, and rightfully so. So at the Howard Department of Chemistry, this documentary, Forgotten Genius, this is my copy right here, it's required viewing. But I think, at HBCUs, for all the science students, this should be required viewing, in my opinion. And if you have a young science hopeful in your circle somewhere, this should be required viewing, in my opinion. My last Black History Month reflection for 2015, because I originally wrote this in 2015, will focus on the legendary chemist Percy Julian. Though honored with his own postal stamp in 1993, the name Percy Julian didn't register in my mind until the annual conference for the National Organization of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers, also known as NOBCHE, in 2012. So NOBCHE is a Black chemists society. It's a professional society. And there was a Percy Julian Award. They were giving out awards. There was a Percy Julian Award, a Henry McBay Award. Henry McBay is another Black chemist. Someone won an award named after him that night, but not being a chemist myself, I didn't have a feel for why he was held in such high honor in that particular circle. It turned out that there was an entire pantheon of well-accomplished African-American chemists. Later on, a mentor gave me a copy of Percy Julian, Forgotten Genius. You could probably stream this somewhere now, but my mentor, he knew I was a STEM professional, and one of my goals was to raise awareness of the STEMs to those like me. So he thought this would be a good DVD for me, and it turned out to be true. The DVD chronicled Julian's life from his youth in the Jim Crow South to his collegiate studies at DePauw University, to his doctoral studies abroad in Austria, and then through his vast research career in the chemical industry, which almost didn't happen due to racism. What stood out to me from Percy Julian's story was his perseverance in spite of the racism he encountered, as well as the fact that his original scientific interest was in plants, which he later returned to after receiving his chemistry training. So this actually opens up that way. I won't give it away, but his original interest was in plant life, and then he took that into his chemistry training, and he eventually returned to it later on. Why is Percy Julian important, and what did he do in the field of chemistry? A better question would be, what didn't he do in chemistry? Among his many accomplishments were becoming one of the first African Americans to earn his PhD in chemistry after Sir Elmo Brady and Edward M.A. Chandler by isolating the active ingredients in Corydalis cava and identifying their structures. So I've hyperlinked those here. Let's go take a look. That's him there, Mr. Julian. And I was looking at this earlier. If I can't find these quickly, I'll just go back. Yeah, here they go. He identified tetrahydrocoptizin, hydrostenin, and canidine. Those are the key alkaloids in Cordalis cava. Okay. And for those of you who have an appreciation for isolation chemistry, you may understand how difficult that is to isolate something with methods from 50 to 60 years ago. You might understand how difficult it is to do something like that from a plant extract. In the pre-civil rights era, Dr. Julian wasn't admitted to any graduate programs in the United States, so he had to travel to Vienna, Austria, where he studied natural products chemistry under Dr. Ernst Spath at the University of Vienna. So he had to go overseas to get his doctoral training because he couldn't get it here. After being denied professorships at universities in the United States, he was hired as the director of chemistry at Glidden's Chicago Chemistry Labs. For African Americans, this breakthrough occurred 10 years before Jackie Robinson integrated the major leagues. So we often think of Jackie Robinson integrating Major League Baseball is often thought of as the big integration moment, but this happened 10 years earlier, and this arguably was more important than professional sports. I see a bot coming in here. Let me block this person, block this bot. Okay. At Glidden, Julian isolated the alpha protein from soybeans, the first plant protein to be produced in bulk in the United States. The alpha protein led to the generation of oils that were used in both food and industrial products of all kinds. So he was a master of isolation chemistry, and that, as I'll describe, that led to a lot of other things. But it was his science training that gave rise to all this. Discovering how to isolate large-scale quantities of stigmasterol from the calabar in soybeans, and then developing an industrial process for using it to generate progesterone in large quantities. This led to numerous hormone therapies and therapeutics by allowing pharmaceutical companies to industrially synthesize sex hormones in large quantities, making them more affordable. So thinking about testosterone and estrogen. So what does that mean? That means that he figured out how to isolate stigmasterol. This is the structure for stigmasterol here. And for those of you who are familiar with hormonal structure in terms of chemical structure, that essentially a part of that is the backbone for our hormones: testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. Those are all cholesterol derivatives. So I think what they were doing back in the day is they were you'd have to isolate those from animals. But what he figured out how to do was how to take the backbones from plants. You could grow, you can grow plants. Growing a plant is much different than growing a cow or a goat or an ox. You have to sacrifice the animal. You have to isolate small quantities from their tissues. But when you grow plants, you can grow a whole field of plants, and you can harvest more and you can isolate more. So he figured out how to get this, how to isolate the stigmasterol from plants, and then to use those precursors from the stigmasterol, or should I say, he figured out how to use the stigmasterol as a precursor to mass produce these hormones. He created processes to mass produce compound S, which could be converted to cortisone. Okay, that's another hormone or hormone derivative. which at the time was a novel but expensive medication for arthritis and inflammation. Julian's discoveries made the drug affordable for the general public and greatly improved the qualities of life of many people. So today, it's nothing to get a cortisone shot for anything. But back then, again, it had to be isolated from animals. So you had to sacrifice animals, pull a little bit of cortisone out, and then you could give it to the patient that way. But he figured out how to take these plant precursors in bulk, get large quantities of this compound S, and then that could be used to make large quantities of cortisone for patients who suffer from arthritis. So more patients had access to it, and he brought the costs down. All from his creative mind and his science training. Now here's one of the bigger ones, arguably. Starting his own company, Julian Labs, which mass-produced hormone intermediates for the major pharmaceutical companies, but potentially more importantly, gave jobs to African-American chemists who couldn't work anywhere else due to racism. He also made himself a millionaire in the process. To me, that sounds an awful lot like Dr. Claude Anderson talking. Build your own companies, employ your own people, create an economy. Instead of going to work for someone else for a little while is okay, but ultimately build your own enterprise. In addition to his many scientific achievements and victories in the realm of chemistry, Percy Julian became highly involved in the civil rights movement and with the NAACP. In the latter stages of his life, he was celebrated with more than 18 honorary degrees and more than a dozen civic and scientific awards. He became only the second African American to be elected to the National Academy of Sciences in 1973. Julian's story is important for several reasons. First, it shows what can be accomplished with great perseverance. Second, it is a testament to how much talent was and is wasted in urban communities. Julian's story is very important for African Americans pursuing advanced degrees, particularly in the sciences. When watching Forgotten Genius, much of what Julian went through during graduate school reminded me of my own experience. Seeing his story years ago would have helped me better understand the significance of my own graduate studies. Today, his story can help and inspire younger generations of potential African American scientists and innovators in a world where STEM education is becoming increasingly important. So that's the end of that post. And for me, I'm going to drop the link in a second in case anyone wants to come up. But the reason this matters to me, and the reason this is so important to me, I'm going to go back to imaging and messaging. This is also in the description box below in case anyone wants to read it. I read this over on my science channel about a year ago. This is entitled "The Story of How I Earned My STEM Degree as a Minority." There were a lot of struggles when I went through my own scientific journey. I didn't know when I got there, I didn't know if I had what it took to be there and to stay in there. I didn't know if I belonged there. I didn't know once I got into my PhD program if I had the aptitude to be there. Science, the way that some of you guys know Nicole, the way that we learned it, it involves doing experiments. It involves trying things out. It involves figuring out what works and what doesn't. And you have to get past that aspect of what doesn't work to get to what does work. And if you're not careful, you could feel like it's you, and that you're doing something wrong, and that you're not worthy of being there. But there's a part of that that's just part of the scientific process. You have to try 100 different things before you get that one thing to work. Guys, please hit that like button if you're just coming in, whether or not you're watching on the original channel or the science channel. But you have to persevere and work your way through your experiments and your tools to eventually get to something that works in terms of your experimental system, and to where you can actually generate and publish data. That can take time. It may not necessarily be you personally. It might be your tools. It might be the experiment. It might be the research. But when I watched the documentary, I saw that he himself, Percy Julian, he had to test things over and over and over and over and over again until he finally made the breakthrough. So that would have been valuable for me to know, as I had no STEM professionals in my family who had gone down this route. The other thing was, as a Black man in my 20s, as I said before, there are archetypes for us in the mainstream media and pop culture, in our communities, and a lot of us attach our worth to how much money we have at that particular time. And so there were times during my graduate studies where I didn't necessarily feel good about myself because I didn't have any money, and I just didn't appreciate the importance of what I was doing. I didn't appreciate the importance of the opportunity, and I didn't really have a feel for what I could become. I was just dwelling on the fact that I didn't have any money, and that I was in school, and that I was a broke student. I'll say it. I love my father to death, but I think he had something to do with that programming. The women you meet, that has something to do with your programming, because you feel like you don't have any money, so you're not worth much. Seeing this during that process or before the process would have let me know, hey, I'm here for a purpose. I'm building on something. I'm learning a very, very valuable expertise and skill set that not everybody has. And I'm going to be something pretty big one day. Just like Percy Julian. And then the last thing I'll say is that graduate school, the science that Percy Julian was doing, the science that I learned, the science that Nicole does and learned herself and her path, that's not regular school. That's not regular school where you're in a book all week and you're writing papers. You're at a bench doing experiments, generating new data. That's me right there. Generating new data, finding new knowledge, publishing papers, discovering innovations. So if you don't have any STEM professionals in your family's not going to know what you're doing. They're not going to know why you're doing it. They're going to think, okay, well, he's been in that program for 5 to 6 years. Why hasn't he graduated yet? Because you're doing science and there's no timeline on science. And I remember my dad said to me one time, and then I'm going to drop the link if someone wants to come up. I see Art New Style. I see you're still there. I remember my father told me one time, we were talking during that time, my father's master's level. He said, that must be some serious studying that you're doing. No, I wasn't studying. I was doing research. I was doing science. I was doing experiments. Hence the importance of a documentary like this, because you can see that Percy Julian went through the same process to become who he became. So I'm going to drop the link. If some of you guys want to come up and say something, you're welcome to do so. Art, I know you're in education yourself. I think it's critical that this type of messaging gets out more so than it's already there. So the StreamYard link is there. If someone wants to come up, I'll let this go for a little bit longer. If not, then I will shut this down. Yeah, guys, I believe in imaging and messaging. If all you see are professional athletes and entertainers, and if there are no scientists in your family, how how do you start that path? How do you go to get your PhD in the STEMs? How do you go and get your PhD in pharmacology or toxicology or molecular biology? If you don't have anything to see, it's pretty much, you may not get there. You probably won't get there. So if you think about all the ADOS tribe, quote unquote, think of all the kids who don't grow up seeing Black STEM professionals, who don't grow up seeing scientists, and the fact that, I don't know. Oh, Art Newstall's here, and the fact that, he did all this back in the 50s and the 60s, and we almost never hear about this guy. I think that's problematic. That's problematic. What's going on, Art Newstall? Art, I get all the emails. Yeah, I know you email me the link. I appreciate that. I'm gonna come up sometime soon. I'm just on the East Coast, and I'm turning in.
I understand, fam. Disregard some of the noise you may hear. That's why
Okay.
I'm kind of a little hesitant to come up half the time because I don't want to kill the professionalism on some of these live streams.
Oh boy. No, well, Art, you're in education. I mean, so you know
Yeah,
the
so they
importance.
tell me, but I don't say democracy enough. So that's
Okay.
that. That's how you get validated. Um, yeah. Whew. Yeah, that's a breath of fresh air that you would bring up, Dr. Percy Julian. I don't have much. I mean, you pretty much covered everything about him. If you look in our Omega Sci-Fi history book, he's been instrumental in a lot of things that he had his hand in, um, as far as helping develop the fraternity. So, and the funny part is, can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. The funny part, because I'm going to start. I didn't. I wasn't doing this part just for Black History Month, but I'm going to start talking about what is Black culture, right? Which is good stuff and bad stuff, right? The stuff that, like you said, when you talk about this portion of Black culture, people, there's so many people that surprisingly don't want to talk about him, but they want to put Boom Quisha out there as Black culture, or the whole Pookie and Ray Ray as Black culture, chitlins and all that stuff. But you know, if you think about it, you would have to look him up and find out all the things that he have, contributed to the, things that we need. I guess his thing about the different hormone studies and what have you. Wouldn't you think that if we talk about this enough or more, the whole Boom Quisha or Pookie and Ray Ray thing won't be the only thing that we know as Black culture? That I always put that out there. It's like people always give you one side of the story and they give you the side of what somebody else says. But when it comes to Black excellence, I don't know, man. It's some of us as a people don't even want to talk. We talk about the regular Black excellence, like Michael Jackson or Jordan or all that, but we don't get into the stuff that you're talking about, which really put a lot of us on the map back in the day when it came to taking us seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there, but I'm gonna stay on message, man. I can't sit there and just change up just for people to like what they hear, because more than half the time I would hope that young people are listening, not the ones that couldn't make it in life. God bless them, because hopefully it helped them. But the main goal is to get the young ones that won't just settle, just won't settle to be a mediocre person or cut corners. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they can make changes too. So the fact that you use this brother as a lightning rod, that speaks volumes. I mean, you are the proof that when you go over historical facts about who we are and what we did, this is what it produces. A Dr. Dunbar.
Hmm.
I applaud you. Salute, fam.
Well, I appreciate that, and when I look back, at my graduate studies, again, I didn't appreciate the importance of what I was doing. I didn't appreciate what I was there for, and this I'm gonna bring this up really quickly. Um, this essay here that I wrote, art. Give me 1 second. Yeah, at the end of this, in this essay, I talk about all the lessons that I had to learn inside the lab, but at the end, oh, he's gone. Well, Art New Style, thank you for coming up. But I talk about all the lessons that I learned. He's back. Okay, you're back. Um, I talk about all the lessons that I had to learn inside the lab, but there were lessons I had to learn outside the lab too. In other words, what ladies to get involved with, for example. And I was in a very, very chaotic relationship when I was in graduate school, and I unknowingly subjected myself to a lot of stuff, in large part because I didn't understand the importance of what I was doing and why I was there. Um, and as a young black man, that some of the things Art just talked about in terms of the culture, you have to learn how to navigate that. You have to learn how to shake some of that stuff off, and you have to learn um, that you don't have to adhere to certain archetypes and images and those kinds of things. So I think I'm fortunate to have made it through the process, but there were a lot of cultural aspects uh, on the relationship front, and also even after school, even after graduating, coming to Washington D.C. I think
Hmm.
that we as Black professionals, we still have to navigate letting some parts of the culture go, um, and retaining certain things. One thing with Black men is having swagger, quote unquote. We still get graded upon having swagger and comporting ourselves a certain way, as Black Uru says. And in graduate school, you learn to speak. You learn to speak articulately. You learn to use the King's English. You learn to use words that will confuse a good number of people, and sometimes your people will penalize you for that.
Yeah,
So,
that's yeah, that's I think my Nation of Islam background helped me to understand, you know, how to navigate through, the so-called, street vernacular or the ghetto type thing that people talking about. Just to, not to accept it, because people think that just because you talk to people in these areas, you're just accepting it. No, what you're doing is you're understanding what you're dealing with, and you're waiting for an opportunity to convey things that they may need as a resource,
mhm,
which is, I think, a lot of us lack that, because we're looking at it from a lens of the media or power that be. But at the same time, I know we have a ways to go, but there's still a lot of history there that gives you an understanding that the only way is up. And you have examples now. You have templates. And a matter of fact, you have situations where it doesn't have to be as difficult as it was for them. Percy Julian, who was born in like the late 1800s.
that's right.
Could you imagine? Shoot, going through all of that and still becoming a doctor or a chemist
Yep.
through those circumstances. You know, and right now, 2022, you can literally get all the information you need. and accomplished the same thing probably in a shorter amount of time than he did. So, I just hope that people start looking at things more from a practical standpoint rather than just being emotional and really being having a fan base of people that have a microphone or whatever it is, and just really look at the things that will put you in position of power based on your gift and your expertise. I don't know how else I can even convey these messages because when I say these things, people look at us sideways, like, hey, everybody doesn't have to do this. Like when the way we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I 9 times out of 10, somebody will hop on the panel and say everybody don't have to be a doctor, and it's like he never said that though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? My whole thing is okay. If you recognize these potentials in the young, don't sit there and just be selfish and tell them because the young listens to us, whether we're from the street or in the boardroom or whatever. They listen. So I think it's very selfish for someone, if you see that potential in that person and
Mm-hmm.
then hold back and say, hey man, you need to get on your purpose. You don't need this, you don't need that, you need to run it like me or whatever it is, which is different from back then. The dude from the street used to protect the guys that were in the books and
Mm-hmm.
said, leave him alone, he's different, he's gonna make it. That kind of thing. We don't see that anymore, or at least I don't see it. So that's been my full message, and this is coming from an educator. So I'm not just these, some regular dude that just coming up here and just saying gibberish. The whole message to make sure we need more Dr. Dunbars. We need more Bill Cosby's. I don't know about the allegations, but the stuff that he was doing, I think the fear was the fact that he would create 200 more of himself. Through the college. What do you call it? The college culture.
Mm-hmm.
That was his thing. He did it through entertainment. So I hope people just really wake up and see what's going on. Because here's my concern. I
Mm-hmm.
think people will wake up, but it might be too late to do anything about it. I'm just saying. Some people say it's too late now, but
Yeah.
but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to thank Ian Williams for the Cash App. And you might find this interesting art. There's another much bigger, controversial content creator than me, um, who has taken slings and arrows for obvious reasons for the things he talks about. But one of the things that I one of the more valuable things I think that he has said, and based upon what I just told you about my graduate experience, I got involved in a rough relationship, and I didn't know what I was there for, and I didn't appreciate the importance of what I was doing.
Hmm.
This gentleman has said that men in their 20s need to focus on their craft.
Right.
And I so wish that I'd gotten that advice when I was in my late teens and my early 20s, because if I had known that, then I would have just focused and said, you know what, all this other stuff, you want to spend time with me, we can date, we can do this and this, but my main thing is learning my craft, is learning how to do these experiments, it's learning how to write research papers. This is why I'm here.
Hmm.
I didn't have that.
Right.
And
Right.
what we know at a given juncture in our lives, that kind of dictates what we do and how we respond to challenges at that time. So I think if I'm talking to younger men right now in their late teens and early 20s, I would say, yeah, focus on your craft. Get that get that squared away first. Everything else, you can worry about that afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. My situation, because I was still a teacher. But when I was married, I can tell my ex-wife did not respect my job and my craft,
Hmm.
even down to being an artist. It was like whatever. Um, the fact that I was still working on, climbing and getting better. I overheard her saying that he's not really that big time anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be somebody I'm married to. So you have to lay next to someone like that, and the reason why, and I kind of got some of the ideals from her parents. Whereas if you're going to settle down, you need to settle down with someone that's traditional because they know what to do when you're trying to get the job done. But they're old school.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this situation, it appeared that way because I looked more at the parents more than just her. Because I'm figuring, okay, that's how they raise, blah blah blah. But there's some situations where even if a person is raised right, they kind of want to get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I got, I found out the hard way on that one. But if somebody was going to get settled down, I don't know how you'd be able to assess it. But I think tradition is the only way. Because I think when they start trying to, because half the time, you already know, and we hear this all the time, it's very bad when your woman feels that she has to compete with you when you're on your upward climb.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's somewhat, I can't accuse everyone, but at times there's sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I can't make excuses for it, but that's something that you don't want to run into when you're trying to be the best. Because if you look at Percy Julian's history right there, I'm quite sure that he didn't have that issue. I'm quite sure someone had his back and was giving him a lot of encouragement while he was going through the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't look at that either, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, even just having done science, myself, I mean, in education, there's a huge thinking component. The planning, the making sure, step A is seamless to step B to step C. That's seamless to step D. There's a huge, and if you're going through stuff you don't need to be going through at home,
Right.
that's going to interfere with your ability to perform your task and to hone your craft.
Hmm.
And I think that as young black men, there's pressure on us to get money early, and to get money quickly. Um, Science careers, you don't get paid right away.
Right.
You have to gather the expertise and the knowledge first,
Right.
and that, depending upon what you get into, that could take some years. But you have to have a level of long term thinking, and delayed gratification to excel in that arena.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to be. I mean, unless you're Zuckerberg or something like that, you're not gonna be a millionaire. And
Well,
by the time you're 25, go ahead.
it depends on your circles, right? It
That's
depends
true.
on who you associate with, how much you travel. Um, it depends on a lot of those things. Some people just stay in that one little area and don't move anywhere. So basically, that's what happens. One thing that one of my fraternity brothers told me when I first came in, and I still haven't followed his advice enough. He said, if you know enough brothers, you'll never be broke.
Hmm.
That's what he said. And he had a deep voice with it too. He said, like Bill Duke. If you know enough brothers, you'll never be broke.
Hmm.
So, and you think about it, all these fraternities, the Kappas, the Sigmas, Alphas, all of them, they're all over. They're worldwide. They're not just little small pockets. They're like all over the place. So there's all kinds of expertise in these organizations. That, a matter of fact, I got my home. Well, not my home, but my condo at the time. I got my condo from a loan officer that was married to a Kappa.
Okay. Wow.
And she saw my shirt, or not my shirt, my jacket, and she was like, "Wow, my husband's a Kappa." Blah blah blah. I said, "Oh, so even if you're not in the same word, I'm saying even if you're not in the same organization, there's always some kind of benefits of association, and throwing names out there, because it's not just how it's not just only how good you are at your craft. It's basically enough people that'll be able to take you from point A to point B.
Mhm.
Because you got different ways to go to the store. You can walk there, you can drive, call a cab. One day it might be one day it might be teleportation.
Mhm.
you know, but the key thing is how fast you want to get there. That's the key. How much work you want to put into it. And then on the other part is, do you really care what people think on on what you do? Some people trying to please people not to be educated, or not to have a degree. Sometimes people feel like, oh, if I don't have a degree, it'll make people happy. I'm one of the fellas. They try to dumb down their experiences. You know, you a doctor? I didn't know. And you up here holding back like, I'm a doctor. You know, I'm like, that's why I said in the one of my live streams. I mean, if you got these expertise, say it with glee. Who cares? You know, don't throw it in people's face like on soul food.
Mhm.
But but say it with glee. Matter of fact, inspire somebody. But I
Mhm.
know I keep sounding like I'm saying the same message.
No, it's okay,
But
Art.
that's my number one goal is to stop wasting resources. If the resources are there, grab them, because you never know, they close up. They can't be there forever. You
Mhm.
know. But yeah, that's my spill on it, man. Um, hope I can one day. I'm gonna try to make. It's kind of hard, but it's kind of hard to make this whole education talk fun. Quote unquote fun and whatever. Somebody got to probably come in here and fight with you and say, "Hey, man, you know, being a lawyer is just as hard as being a doctor." Say, "Oh yeah, what you do?" Might be some of that. I don't know. Some it just I don't know, man, because I don't want to broad stroke us either.
Okay.
But
Well, no, no. I think. Well, I think Black History Month gives us a nice
segue.
pathway inwards to talk about something like this. But I agree. Yeah, science topics are education topics. They're tricky in that you're going to grab a certain slice of the population, especially in our community.
Yeah,
Um,
brother.
but we gotta figure it out. We gotta figure out how to do it. So
It's hard, man. It's really
it is.
hard, but yeah, because I listen to different spaces and listen to different live streams, and I think mainly the good part is that it helps us to stay in our lane.
Hmm.
The bad part is the people that have that potential.
Hmm.
It's not really tapped on the shoulder.
Hmm.
That's my issue. I mean, I have several, but that's one of them. But I'm gonna keep chipping at it. I think that's what I'm good at, just chipping at things. And you know, yeah. So that's the thing that I'm hoping that we keep pushing is education.
Okay.
And whatever's in your expertise, man. You know, that's my whole thing. Just pushing the education part, or even just talking about it. And for those people that are out there listening, if you're not, if you feel that you're not college material or doctor material or bachelor's material, master's, whatever, encourage somebody else. you know, I always say, okay, if you're not that, then what about we ain't stupid people, man. That's what I'm saying. We're not unlearned people. I mean, a lot of us here from this country, we're some smart black people here.
Hmm.
We can have conversations with anybody, anywhere, whether it's religion. whether it's education, politics, law, labor, entertainment. We have it, family, but we have other things too in addition. So
Hmm.
anyhow, but
Well,
appreciate you having me. Oh, go ahead.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I see myself. I think. I mean, I have my 9 to 5, which is I work in regulatory in the federal government, but I think there's so much more other good I can do, like this. Um, these messages have to get out somehow, and if someone, I don't know, if someone listening, like gets this for a young person, or if this inspires someone, then this will have been worth it. Because, like I said, there were no STEM professionals in my family growing up, and
Yeah. You know
you
how
know,
they treat art in our community.
yeah,
They want stuff for free.
they want stuff for free, and Black History Month, you hear the same names, you see the same faces.
Yeah,
It's
MLK.
all civil rights, and I'm
Uh-huh.
not saying civil rights is not important, but I'm saying that there are other pioneers in our story, you know.
Yeah,
And
I thought about finding.
it shouldn't
Oh, I'm
be
sorry.
every young person who wants to be a scientist or an engineer. It shouldn't be that they're starting over, or that they don't know that they have a history of doing that already. My graduate advisor, and I talk about this in the other essay I showed you guys, his father was a scientist. So my graduate advisor was working in a lab at a young age. So he kind of knew what to do. But when we get in there, we have to kind of figure it out again, because we
Mm.
don't have uh the symbols and the images there on the way up. Go ahead.
No, I thought about coming up with different entertainers that went to college for different reasons, like the Commodores.
Hmm.
I think most of them went to Tuskegee to be engineers. Yeah,
Mm,
we have a lot of people that were, that have a different background than what we see now, you know. And I
that's
might I
interesting.
might try to do a live stream on that, just find a directory on that and talk about that. Because I'm gonna just keep pushing that. We're not one-dimensional people.
No.
We have a lot to offer. We had and still do. We just need to wake up the sleeping dragon.
Hmm.
Maybe it's through the mom, maybe it's through the school system, whatever it is. But yeah, I remember, because remember we had that talk a little bit about our moms having an educational background and putting the pressure on us. And I'm not sure if that's the answer for a lot of the kids, but for some reason that makes a difference though, in some different facets or whatever. I'm not sure about the Tiger Mom stuff, but as far as making sure that you're walking out of the house with some educational tools, that's going to always make a difference. Since
Hmm.
mom is the first teacher.
Okay.
Uh, but there's so many different ways, man. But I really, like I said, like we talked about before, the stuff that we talked about in the back chat or what have you. I'm looking forward to putting that one-on-one together, and then make it more people coming up and sharing their ideals and things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a group of us who are interested in the education slash building aspect. So there's a little group of us. So at some point we need to figure out how to kind of build that up together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've been saying that for a while.
Okay.
It's some things that I noticed,
Okay.
but in the meantime, it will get done. It will get done. Um, I think mainly, for sure. I think we have, what I try to do is try to give a disclaimer. You know, when we're talking about this, we're not tapping the plumber, the electrician, the auto mechanic guy, whatever. We're not tapping them on the shoulder about going to college. If he wants to, then fine. That's not the main message. I'm talking about creating more Dr. Dunbars, you
Hmm.
know, judges, lawyers, you know, that kind of thing. More professors. Um, because basically when you because we talk about that whole job thing where people say, you know, well, you need to get a trade to get these jobs, what have you. Well, I mean, I think that like if I, you know, once I become an, for example, I'm working. A lot of people know that or hear me talk about being an administrator,
Hmm.
and administrators have a lot to do with hiring teachers. That's an example. So I would be in position to employ more of my people that are qualified. You know, same thing with you know, a lawyer in a law firm or a head of a medical practice. We're, you know, when you have more people in position to do the hiring, and it can be, you know, you can say, hey man, this guy wants to be a electrician in this building, you know, look out for him, you know, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I think it helps out because we got the trades. That's going to always be there.
Yeah.
But when we start encouraging, you know, because we got to build, you know, we got to build it up. You know, people just don't come out of it. Not too many people just come out of out of the blue and at the age of 38 and say, "Hey, man, I want to be a doctor."
No.
You got to start young. So that's what I'm saying. We got to be more responsible with these messages here. You know, but at the same time, once he's was it past the age of 15 or so, then they supposed to be considered somewhat responsible choice they make. I think
Hmm.
some people say 12, some people say 17. I'll go with 15. So if they chose that route and they said, hey, that's cool, I want to get like that, that's your choice. But in the meantime, you know, you got that dirty glass and clean glass, you know, that whole metaphor. And that's as much I can think of to contribute to the conversation, fam.
Okay. Well, all right. Yeah, I appreciate you coming up, man. I'm gonna go ahead and this is my second stream today, so I'm gonna go ahead and wind this one down.
Yeah, these are my days off.
Okay. 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 All right. All right. All right.
Usually Saturday, I do every other Sunday, like the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, I just chill, man.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
chill
but
time is important.
brother, but I definitely appreciate you, you know, covering this, and you know, not just because the brother is frat, but just but his name pops up a lot, you know, in our circles.
Hmm.
But you know, hey, it is what it is, fam.
Hmm.
But I appreciate you once again.
Okay. All right. Take care.
You too. Peace.
All right, everyone. I want to thank those of you who watched on the original channel and those of you who watched over on the Science and Technology channel. Uh, this blog post is going to be below in the description box if you're watching on the playback and you want to read it. Folks, spread this message. I mean, spread this message. This is a documentary. It's Kalila. Thank you. Thank you for stopping through. Um, Spread this message. This is a documentary. You might be able to stream this from somewhere now. My mentor gave this to me, shoot, back in 2013, 2014. But uh, our scientists, our Black scientists, we gotta get these names out there. These names aren't out there enough. They're just not out there enough. Our entertainers are, our athletes are, but those young people who have an aptitude for the STEMs, are they going to have to reinvent the wheel when they go into their programs? You know, are they going to quit because they don't think they're supposed to be there? Are they going to feel like they're not worthy once they get to the University of Michigan, or will they know at that point, yeah, we've done this. Percy Julian did it. Henry McVeigh did it. You know, we have all these Black astronauts. We've done this before, so I'm supposed to be here. You know, that's why this is important. So this was my second stream today. So I'm going to wind this down. This is in the description box. Also, the link for my newsletter is there. Kalila, I think you signed up for that. I appreciate that. Please consider signing up for the Big Words LLC newsletter. Also, the link for my book project, The Engineers of Western New York Basketball Story, is down there as well. I write in addition to YouTubing and in addition to working my 9 to 5. So, all right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I think on Monday, I'm planning to have another guest back to talk about inflation. So we'll know, we could talk about what's happening with our money and our economic system. So look out for a stream on Monday right here on the original channel. And I think that's it. There will be more Black history content coming throughout the month. I want to do something on the Black astronauts. There are several Black astronauts who we never hear about, men and women. So I'm going to do something on that, as well as some other things. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.